The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners. Medical House presents Bermuda's most viewed and listened to talk show. The Daily Hour starts now.
It's Thursday, the 5th day of November. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House and Lindos. I'm Mal Hartman, along with Carla Zool and Sherry Lynn Pringle. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you haven't already, share the link, start a watch party, just get the conversation out there to your network. Another good one for you today, as we have a former police commissioner and former senator, he's both, Jonathan Smith stopping by. Have a lot to discuss politically. It's a political circus some places in the world right now, and the pandemic. The Daily Play is the name that place, so Carla and I are guessing somewhere that Sherry probably doesn't remember. Yeah, it should be a good one today. Hopefully Sherry will be back with us in a second. Carla, I know the time difference is a bit iffy over there as per, first what we experience. But before we even get onto this side of the world, what I want to touch on is the UK. So today is the official day you all go back into prison or something?
Lockdown, yep.
What time? Like, is it first thing this morning or is it tonight?
No, it was effective from midnight, November the 5th.
All right. So what does lockdown look like? I've just seen the news headlines, but what does this lockdown pertain? What does it mean for you all?
Different things for different people, because before it was a total lockdown. It seems it's a bit flexible. So it's if you can work from home, work from home. Mm-hmm. Shops, pubs and restaurants have to close unless they're doing delivery or takeout. Non-essential shops are supposed to close. But yesterday I rushed to the hair shop and the gentleman said, oh no, this time we're doing delivery. So I think people are being more innovative since this is the second run. You can exercise, but you're only allowed to exercise with someone in your family. Mm-hmm. Unless, like for me, because I'm a single person with children, I can have another person in my support bubble.
So a boyfriend,
a full 100 date, yeah. So yeah, I live right along a small motorway as such, and usually it's a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. The traffic has slowed down, but last time it was like a ghost town. But I have seen cars go by. And interestingly, this is the most interesting thing. Schools are still in.
So it's a shutdown, but schools are still in. How about like football academies and activities?
Well, that's the big debate, because schools are in, and for football, which is my son's area of interest, they can play school football. Mm-hmm. But they were saying that you can't play what's called elite football, which are the academies. But then it's academy training tonight. So it's all over the place. People are petitioning to have academies continue, at least up here in Manchester. But I think I'm not in agreement with that. Because who has to bring the children out? The parents. And who's exposed to the disease, the virus? The parents. And then this mask thing. So right now, Naeem's 10, but some of his classmates are 11. So the 11-year-olds have to wear a mask, but the 10-year-olds don't, in the same class.
Well, a lot of these rules with COVID just make no sense. Let's bring Sherry back into the conversation. They definitely make no sense. But what is the purpose? What has the British government explained is the purpose for the lockdown? Like, what is it, to stop the spread? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
It's to stop the spread. It's supposed to be initially for 4 weeks, so it's until December 2nd, because they're saying that the numbers keep going up and up. So they're trying to get the trend to go downwards.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I went to Costco and oh my gosh, it was like 10,000 people in there. So another opportunity. And not everyone wears their mask. They just refuse to do it. And shops are picking their battles. So it's really a point of contention for a lot of people either way, because if they believe in coronavirus, they feel that people are being selfish, and if they don't believe in it, they think people are being ridiculous, and it's causing tensions as well, and of course from the economic perspective. So
I think I read somewhere that the U.S. had its highest day in a while on the election day, which is
Yeah.
crazy, right?
Yeah. 100,000 cases.
Yeah, that's what I saw. 100,000 cases. So interesting. And I just obviously the UK, I don't understand the government system. Well, that's why we have professionals like or experts, I should say, like Jonathan Smith joining us, because I honestly don't have an understanding of the British political system and how it works. I know over here, I think I understand it a bit more. With how states versus the federal government and so on. I don't know what's going to happen politically in the US over the next well days, I should say, rather than a few months. But I think whatever does happen will impact the way they start responding to the virus. I truly do believe that. Now, speaking of the US election, it still hasn't been called, so we're still presidentless per se. Well, truth be told, Donald Trump is still president until January anyway. But I find it interesting. I thought I was reading wrong yesterday that in states where he was up, he wanted to stop counting the ballots, and in states where he was down, he wants a recount. Like that, did I read that correctly? Or
the hypocrisy of it all,
You read
it's
it correctly.
ridiculous.
Yeah. And he's literally filed lawsuits to have counts stopped or have things done. And it's like, it's totally different than any other election I've ever been involved in. Not just him alone, but just the whole how it's shaping up. It's actually quite interesting. It's going to be historic either way. But he is sulking. Yeah, he is just really big. But you got to remember, he said he is not a politician. So the way he's acting,
It's like a businessman
mhm,
bullying. But what I find amazing is that he's actually fighting against some of the policies that he asked to be in place. It's like you
yeah.
said that it would be unfair to stop the counting, and now you're saying stop the counting.
well,
So
here's the thing, and going back to what I said yesterday about democracy, if it's democracy when it's in your favor, it's democracy when it's not in your favor. And I've just watched, I've observed people who were pro-Trump and pro-Biden and how they've changed over the last 24 hours. I remember that question I asked at the end of yesterday's episode: who still believes Biden has a chance? And I think for the most part, a lot of us believe that he still had an opportunity, a chance, when you look at the math, right? And it looks like he will pull it off. I think I'm challenged with this, though. I'm challenged, and I can't be the only one that's challenged with the leadership issue. And I go back to Donald Trump being a great leader because he has people out here looking foolish. Like he's got people. I mean, you saw the barbecue bear and freedom shirt guy. I hope everyone's seeing that guy.
on Twitter.
Like the theories that are being pushed by him and bought into by people, it's not good leadership, but it's leadership. His ability to influence people based on propaganda and misinformation, it's second to none.
But Sherry, because I know you're into all of it, do you get the vibe that the Republican Party is kind of pulling away from him as such? Because I was listening online yesterday, and they were talking about with all these lawsuits, whatever, and they said the Republican Party wanted to stress that all of this is Trump driven. They kept saying that. Do you think they're probably having battles?
Well,
I'm
they
asking you
will
because
be.
you're so
Yeah.
into it.
I mean, they will be without vocally coming out and actually saying something, unless they're like they're not up for re-election in 2022 or something. I think because this is his last term, they have to realize that they're going to need to distance themselves from him in order to continue their careers as senators. But it is going to be a strange, when you say leadership, Jamel, it's going to be strange because the Senate is still going to be Republican. So Joe Biden's hands are going to be
No,
tied.
no. I spoke about this with family last night. No. Because what's my mate name? Used to play for the Washington Wizards. His very outspoken. My God, Eton Thomas. He
Mhm.
said it best, and I said it yesterday. The Democrats have to learn to fight fire with fire. Think about the record number of executive orders that President Donald Trump signed.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not time for Joe Biden to use the excuse that he doesn't control the Senate. Get those executive orders signed, dusted, and done.
That's
Don't,
true. And
I
you know,
don't want to hear any excuse about we don't have the Senate. That Joe Biden needs to remember, as I stated on Facebook yesterday, it's the black vote. You know, the often maligned, hated, blamed vote when the Democrats don't win. It's these people pushing them over the line. When you look at where these votes are coming from, the inner city, urban areas, that's what's pushing them over the line, right? So you need, by any means necessary, in the most legal way possible, to deliver for the people who deliver for you. So I don't want to see, and all you folks, every last one of you that be like, get out to vote, people died for it. I want to see that same energy for making sure the Biden-Harris administration is doing the work of the very people who decided this election. Yep, that 12%. Make it happen. No more excuses. Executive orders. Now, Charles says something interesting because we can't remember if we might have two runoffs in Atlanta, right? So this is a big opportunity for the Democrats to really, in that case, not just put money there, because we see that didn't work out in South Carolina, nor did it work out in Kentucky. They put millions of dollars, over 100 million, I believe, in both of those combined against Lindsey Graham and that Mitch McConnell. It didn't work out for them. They don't need to just put money. They need to develop a strategic plan over the next month or so and get the people of Georgia out. So those are key. Thank you for that, Charles. The press is complicit in controlling the narrative. I don't disagree with you. I think the press have been humbled this election. I think the press on all sides have been humbled during this election. I think a lot of the same mistakes by the press that they made in 2016 were made. We can't ignore this. Now, another concern that came up, you guys, was the amount of people that voted for Donald Trump. Even more people voted for him, and obviously double black women, double black male. Look like 18% black male, 8% black women, and obviously the Latino vote going up. And people are saying this is cause for concern. There's so many different ways to look at this, but we'll never know unless we ask those individuals. We can speculate and say, well, they voted against Joe Biden because of his history against blacks. You can say that they voted for Trump because they got a stimulus check. And by the way, I wonder if I'm gonna get another one. Sorry. Sorry.
Send some over here.
We just don't know. We don't know, and we have to be very careful with statistics. But this is an interesting time for the United States of America, because I sent you guys a video right before we came on air, and it was basically George Bush won when he lost. How now you look back and you're like, well, this was very graceful of him. At the time, you're probably like, good riddance, get out of here. But you just don't see that level. You don't see that happening with Donald Trump. And what I'm speaking of, folks, is basically when George Bush lost to Bill Clinton. I mean, he was like, we have a lot of work to do. I'm going to be calling Governor Clinton, as he was at the time, and letting him know I'm here to help him any way possible. Again, this is their system. It's all about them. But I don't think you're going to see that with Donald Trump.
I see Donald Trump taking the White House keys and going bloop and swallowing them so no one can have them. Like, it's so childish and silly.
It's amazing how he hasn't even, I haven't seen him. I mean, you see his tweets, but you haven't seen him. He's still the president of the United States, and he's in a corner sulking,
Talking about his tweets, but I like how Twitter is blocking him whenever he's or removing the tweet whenever he's saying something crazy. And then seeing that Nigeria thing yesterday, it's like he blows my mind. He is
No,
like
but you have
good.
Nigerian friends on social media, right? What are they saying about it? Because one of my guys I went to graduate school with was like he was kind of rude. I guess I can repeat it, but he was just like, yeah, all you people over in Nigeria that are marching for Trump, just remember that when you're asking us Nigerians in America for money and stuff like that. I was like, oh wow, because he's been a big Democrat fan. Real quickly before we get to news, the other thing that I saw on Twitter, and let me touch James Birch. He says Trump and his enablers are creating the false narrative. I don't disagree with that, but the media does play a role. We do play. I'm going to include us, media. We do play a role. Like let's not act like we overall are innocent in what we drive. Like us talking about it. Like yesterday we spoke about the market. I have no.
No, yesterday you spoke.
Yeah, apparently Carla wasn't existent in this show. But yeah,
I had to keep coming back to check to see if you were on, Carla.
you had a pulse. Carl, let's get
Listen,
the news because we have to bring Mr. Smith in. He's the expert on all this.
it's what he loves, Sherry. So I stay in my lane, okay? Bermuda residents will not be faced with a rollback of their existing freedoms unless there is community transmission of the coronavirus, says Health Minister Kim Wilson. The present 18 active COVID-19 cases are all imported, involving 13 returning residents and 5 visitors to the island. 16 of those cases have been recorded since October 5th, when the Ministry of Health reported only 2 active cases in Bermuda. Should community transmission of the virus develop, Ms. Wilson said the health ministry may recommend adjustments, such as placing restrictions on the sizes of gatherings. The previous story is courtesy of the Royal Gazette. Meanwhile, the Bermuda Police Service wishes to once again remind the public to be alert to individuals who may attempt to fraudulently obtain money from you via what may appear to be legitimate means. In recent times, there has been an increase in these schemes disguised as investment opportunities. The latest such scheme encourages individuals to invest in a Bitcoin plan with promises of returns of as much as $130,000 after 60 days. This is actually yet another example of a pyramid scheme. Metro News reporting a large crowd of Donald Trump supporters, some armed, surrounded an Arizona polling location in anger over the vote count. The crowd, estimated to be in the hundreds, began to grow last night in Phoenix, Arizona, as the election count went into the early morning. The group was heard screaming, "Count the votes," and claimed that no Republicans were counting. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Department brought a team of officers in full tactical gear to the polling location due to the number of protesters. Many were yelling the popular Trump slogan, "Fake news," while waving flags that brandished the president's name. Jamal, what are you cooking for dinner tonight? Are you cooking?
Nah, I'm eating though.
Do you ever cook?
Yeah.
Tea is not dinner. Anyway, Men Make Dinner Day is established to help those men that have perhaps never cooked outside of a barbecue and are a little intimidated by the kitchen. Photographer Sandy Sharpie was responsible for the creation of this day, determined that men could be amazing in the kitchen and help to produce some truly tremendous meals. She'd met far too many men who were not just inexperienced in the kitchen, but were in fact entirely afraid of the prospect of approaching a kitchen with the intent of preparing a meal. Beer is not a meal, gentlemen. Men Make Dinner Day is your opportunity, men, to get out in front of the barbecue and truly amaze your family with a great meal in the kitchen. Turning to weather, with sunny periods and a chance of showers, Bermuda's high today is expected to reach 75, is expected to be 67 in New York City and 50 in Birmingham, UK. It's Thursday, so you know what you should be doing tonight, Sherry and Jamal? Turn into the Full 100 Radio tonight for nighttime jams featuring some of your favorite romantic classics. That's your Daily Hour news break.
So dirty. Look, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with former police commissioner and senator. The do I is honorable? Can we call him honorable? No, honorable.
No, because he's not an MP.
Okay,
He hasn't been an MP.
Jonathan Smith. We'll be back.
Good day, Medical House Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare. Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products.
Anything that we ask them to do, they come through.
These same professional quality products are available to you for home healthcare.
If we can use them, we definitely do so.
Medical House is best known for its uniforms and footwear. It also has restaurant uniforms that stand up to even the toughest shifts. If you're on your feet all day, Medical House has comfortable and stylish shoes that are also durable and easy to clean. Everyone needs some help cleaning up, and Medical House has got it. Leading-edge janitorial, facility, and maintenance supplies are all here. Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there's private parking right outside the door. Call or visit Medical House today.
Coconut oil has been popular here in Bermuda as a skin moisturizer for generations, but is sometimes avoided in cookery because of its unhealthy reputation. We've witnessed a change in attitudes as recent findings indicate that coconut oil is actually heart healthy and can enhance our immune system, increase metabolism, energy and endurance, and improve digestion. Nutiva coconut oil is a superfood in its own right, and this month we're featuring Nutiva organic shortening made with organic coconut and red palm oils and also hemp seed oil. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
All right, it's Carla, Sherry, me. Welcome back to the big show. It's the Daily Hour. Thanks to those who continue to watch on Channel 82. If they have One Communications, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, you know where to find us. If not, how are you watching us anyway? Just want to, before we go on, one of our viewers who tunes into the show and engages often and was actually a guest on the show. I'm not sure if you're a praying person. Please send out prayers, no prayers, just positive thoughts for Talent Clark, who was involved in an accident recently and is based on what we received, in and out of consciousness in ICU. So please show some love for Talent Clark. We definitely hope that he pulls through and he's able to get back to full strength and health. So our thoughts are with Talent and his family. And so again, if you're a praying person, please send prayers. If not, just keep him in your thoughts. All right. So let's get to it. We have Jonathan Smith joining us. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning, Jamal. Good morning, Carla. Good morning, Sherry.
Morning.
Thanks for coming. It's quite a time in the West, I would say. And obviously we would love to get your expertise. So I'm just going to jump to it. Like, what are your thoughts on the U.S. election results thus far?
Well, Jamal and the Daily Hour team, it's an extraordinary set of circumstances going on right now. Not only do we have the Trump factor, obviously, everything that he represents or doesn't represent. You've got this, the Trump movement has just been phenomenally stronger than the polls anticipated. And then there's the uncertainty of the actual result. Biden, and given all the factors with his age and the coalition that he was trying to put together, it's just come down to a really exciting race. I think the closest we got to this in the recent years was in 2020, when we had to wait till mid-December for the Florida vote count to be finally decided, and that was decided by the Supreme Court. I see a lot of this going the same way. I don't think we're going to get a determination this week. The votes may well determine, but I see Trump. He's already started it. There'll be extended court action. He will do anything possible to retrieve what he thinks is his.
And I think you meant 2000, not 2020.
Sorry, year 2000. Yes.
Yes. Oh, good.
20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago.
But Mr. Smith, all that's happened over the last 4 years, are you surprised by how much support Trump has in 2020?
Yeah, I think to a lot of people, Carla, it is absolutely extraordinary. When you look at Trump and the typical presidential election, for somebody who has failed to build a wall, failed to deal with COVID, failed on the economy. Believe it or not, there are 61 million people this year who have applied for unemployment benefits. 4 years ago, 61 million people voted for Trump. That's the extent of the canyon that the country's been driven into, largely because of COVID, largely because of the way he has mishandled it. So it's one of those elections where all the normal things don't apply. He's not getting assessed on performance in the typical sense. He has a movement. It's extraordinary. I think it's surprised a lot of people. And on the back of that sort of resume, he's actually increased his vote. So it is an extraordinary set of circumstances. And I think it's more of a testament of really the terrific problems that the United States has in grappling with the big divide, and the big divide on politics, the big divide on race, and the big divide on the economy.
Now, the UK, as you know, is going back into its second national lockdown today. US numbers for coronavirus are going up again. What's your thoughts on how the world globally has handled the pandemic?
Well, the essential model going back to sort of February or March in many countries was actually largely the same. Most countries in one form or another went to the lockdown regime. And a lot of that was driven out of the research, out of the University College London. Actually, the United States had access to that same research, and the picture in the United States was quite grim. They didn't, because of the way the United States is put together, obviously it was left to the individual states to determine what form of lockdown or not they went down to. But by and large, globally, the approach was largely the same, with some exceptions. The United States was very fragmented over their approach. Brazil, less successful, and a few other countries less successful. The world's learned a lot about the pandemic and how to handle it. So what you're seeing now, for example, in the UK, is a modified lockdown, not as constrained as it was 7 months ago. And a lot of that is just due to the learning of how the virus is transmitted, et cetera, et cetera.
But I have another question. It intrigues me because it started in China, and now China's virtually returned to normal, and the rest of the world seems to be having bouts. Should the world look to China to see how to handle it?
Yeah, China's often cited, and as well as South Korea. I think the important distinction to make is the culture there is very, very different. They tend to, well, not tend to. China is an authoritarian regime. It's easier to lock a country down because the level of compliance is considerably higher. The freedoms people enjoy there are nothing like the freedoms that you and I enjoy in the places we live. South Korea is also more of an authoritarian type of country, although it's democratic. There's a much higher level of compliance amongst the people. And when you look at the disease in its very simplistic form, the transmission can only happen if people are close together. And the South Koreans have been very effective at keeping apart. They wear their face masks as a matter of course. They were wearing their face masks long before coronavirus, and they'll be wearing it long after. So, to a large extent, the countries adopt the regime that they're used to. And in South Korea and China, that's why the results they're seeing now are considerably better than what we're seeing in the West.
Now, shifting a bit to Bermuda, excuse me, losing my voice, to Bermuda politics. We had the election, PLP won by a landslide. Did those results surprise you? And then my second question is, do you think that the OBA can find its way back?
Right, so two parts of that question. And, by way of disclosure, many people will know I've been a member of the Progressive Labour Party for about 12 years or so. I think this is the third general election campaign. I've actually been part of the campaign committee, and I work at constituency level. For example, in 2017 and 2020, I was Chris Famous' campaign manager for Election Day. So I'm very much involved in the on the ground activity in terms of the canvassing and the election machinery, and then the election strategy as part of the campaign committee. So your question was I surprised? No, I was not surprised. I thought the seat total would end up somewhere between 23 and 29. There were a number of factors this time in the election in 2020, which cast a little bit of uncertainty over the outcome and some of the predictions that you would typically make in an election. Obviously, COVID-19 was one. Were people going to stay home because of COVID-19? But you can well understand why the premier called the election when he did. It was on the back of a very high personal ratings for him and very high personal ratings for the government, going back to June or July. And when those ratings came out, I think that's when a lot of the discussion started that an election was likely. So no, the answer to the question, I was not surprised. I was not surprised with the outcome, and we picked up one or two more seats than people anticipated. For the question on the One Bermuda Alliance, they've got some soul searching to do in terms of what they are as a party and what they stand for. The fall of the party in terms of their popular support is really quite staggering. It's gone from 15,000 plus votes in 2012 to 13,000 down to 8,000. Their seat count dropped in 33 seats in the 2017 election, and it dropped a further 35 seats, all 35 seats except one, in the 2020 election. So there's been a serious erosion of support away from the One Bermuda Alliance party, and I think you are now seeing the rebuilding of that party in whatever form they eventually take. You're seeing the rebuilding of an opposition, and that's the process that we'll be through now.
Great. Let's get the elephant out of the room. Jamel, all three work academy again today. Thank you. Just moving on now.
I didn't even know that.
Jonathan, you served with the PLP. Your brother served as a UBP MP. How heated did or does it get in your family during election time? Why are there so few white people running for the PLP? And how do you feel about the sentiment that racial politics was removed with the introduction of the FDM?
Politics is very personal, as you know, and it's not been unusual to find different political views within families, and it does provide sort of tension at times, but I manage to control that. I don't delve into a lot of conversations around politics. If it makes other people feel uncomfortable, the easiest thing to do is you keep it to yourself and you express it in different ways. The second part of the question, Sherry, was why are there so few whites involved?
Why are there very few white people running for the PLP?
I think if we all understand the history and the legacy of politics in Bermuda. It's been racially driven since the very earliest days. It's taken a long time to overcome that, if indeed we've overcome. I think we are overcoming it. What we've seen in the last two elections are definitely a shift of white voters towards the Progressive Labor Party. And we're seeing this not only in the actual vote numbers in certain constituencies, you're actually getting some of that feedback on the doorstep. I did some canvassing this time in two constituencies, and the response was definitely very different from what it was 8 years ago when I actually ran as a candidate in the 2012 election. So we found that white voters are prepared to listen, and they were certainly in 2020. They were prepared to shift their vote from whoever they voted before to the Progressive Labor Party this time. And I think what that is, in terms of politics, what that is, the Progressive Labor Party has expanded under its umbrella. It's expanded its pool of support. Any political party needs to go through that all the time, needs to constantly grow as members die and supporters leave. Then the parties always have to rebuild. So the Progressive Labor Party that you see today of 2020 is certainly very different from 2012 and 2007 and 1998. There is more white support. The the question around candidates, yeah, I guess it would be a good thing to have more white candidates. I don't know the specific reason. I wasn't on the candidate selection committee or anything like that, so I don't know the specific reason as to why the numbers were what they were for this year. The question around the FDM, interesting. I think time will tell. When I learned of the FDM's involvement for this particular election, I went back and looked at the 1989 election, and the 1989 one was significant because that was in our recent time, the last sort of 30 years or so, that was the last time that there was any third party presence of any significance at a general election. And in 1989, the National Liberal Party in Bermuda were at their peak. And even at their peak, they only secured, I think it was a total of, between them and independents, they got 6,000 votes, I think it was. So that was their pinnacle in 1989. I knew we were not going to get anywhere near that this time. And I think time will tell whether the FDM has a future, whether they sort of eventually start to bring on the current One Bermuda Alliance supporters under their umbrella. I think it's far too early to tell. Far too early to tell what that's going to look like sort of 12, 18 months from now, or even leading up to a next subsequent general election.
Okay. As a former PLP senator, what does the PLP government have to do more to move? What does the PLP government have to do to move the country forward post-pandemic?
Three things. It's going to come down to the economy, and the economy. And this is where I think Bermuda is seeing a different side of the Progressive Labour Party from what we, as a country, what we have come to perceive the Progressive Labour Party in the past. We are seeing newer, more innovative ideas when it comes to diversifying our economy. So this next period that we're going to be going through it's really been laid out. The Premier said it, the Finance Minister said it. It is really all about the economy. With an economy working on full steam, as it were, it allows government to do so many more things in terms of the social programs and basically anything else that's on their agenda, anything else that's in their platform. So it will be the economy that will dominate the news, it'll dominate the policy, it'll dominate the next 5 years because of the added challenges of the pandemic. What you can see the government doing is really trying to build a third pillar of our economy. The IB sector has stayed relatively firm, despite a lot of challenges that the IB sector has had. Tourism has obviously been hit very badly, and the projections are it may take another 3 years before the tourism even begins to approach some of the numbers we've had, for example, the record year 2019. So this third pillar you see being built, there's a number of components to it. There's the whole sort of digital asset blockchain environment. There's fintech, insurtech, and regtech. There's the government have promised to pass a new family office legislation to bring some real wealth creators to Bermuda. I think we'll see an expansion of the one-year residency program. I think that's proved to be highly successful. We need it in Bermuda right now. It is bringing foreign money into Bermuda. So I think you're starting to see a different looking economy now from what we saw 5 years ago, and that has to be the answer. There has to be this diversification.
Great.
I just came across something that's I didn't even think of. So the Premier had a gaffe recently, scored an own goal, and that own goal was appointing Mr. Commission as the Senate lead and Minister of Community Affairs and Sports. Well, it looks like someone, Charles H. Jeffers too, says, will the word former be removed from former Senator Jonathan Smith's title today? So I guess the question he's asking is, will you be the Senate lead for the PLP? Have they asked you?
So the answer to your question, Jamal, is no, I have not been asked. I've been asked a number of times, after prior to the 2017 election, and even more recently with the 2020, why a number of the branches approached me to ask, will you run in this particular constituency? And my response has always been the same. It has been no. And the reason for that is I have found with my particular exposure and experience in politics that I don't have a political ego. I think it's one thing you have to have, is you have to have a political ego. I think that's a starting point. I don't happen to have a political ego. The politics of politics, and if you just break that down, the politics of politics itself is not something that particularly excites me. I understand the political environment. I like following politics. I'm a part of politics, but the real minutiae, the politics within the politics, I find I have less patience for. I much prefer looking at the big picture items. And I guess the third part of that, Jamal, is I'm very busy in the private sector. I run a number of businesses. I have an all Bermudian staff, and that keeps me more than busy enough. More than busy enough.
Indeed. I like what you said about ego. The Durham speech is being delivered tomorrow. What do you believe the PLP must address and follow through on in this next Durham speech?
Well, as you know, Durham speeches just throw out a signal for what's to come, and to a large extent, the signals have already been thrown out. We've just had an election. The Progressive Party had its platform out there. The people spoke. And they spoke quite comprehensively, so they expect the PLP to get on with the job. So I would be surprised if there's anything particularly new in the throne speech initiatives. I think a lot of what the Premier, Minister of Finance in particular, have been saying over the last 3 to 6 months, you will hear reframed again tomorrow in terms of what the government is doing and what the government plans to do for economic development, getting people back to work. And I think that's where the focus will be on. So we will hear more about the the government's initiative in terms of some of the work programs they're doing, what they're doing with the Southampton Princess, those that have been unemployed. There's been job fairs. There's been lots of different efforts. There was an announcement just a few days ago around the closing of certain job categories to create more opportunities for Bermudians to apply for jobs within our own country. So I would expect to see a big focus on the economy, where the government's going to be spending its money, what capital projects it's going to pursue in the next 12 months to get Bermuda to retain Bermudians on the job sites, as it were. So again, it's the economy. The economy is going to just absolutely dominate the plans going forward.
All right. Before we let you go, obviously you mentioned just now people that have lost jobs, for instance, from around Southampton, right? And throughout the pandemic, there have been companies, people losing jobs, and so on. If there was something you could say that could give people hope, what should people in those positions be looking for from your perspective? Just lost a job, you don't see anything that's popping up. Like, is there anything that people, anywhere people can look for hope and just believe that this will get better?
The answer to will it get better? Yes, it will get better, but yes, it will also take some time. Government has been big on inviting people to retool and re-skill themselves as well. And government have also made it clear that they're not going to let, and this is the phrase they've used, is they're not going to let anybody go hungry. So we've heard about the extension of the unemployment benefits, and I think that's been a critical bridge to keep money in homes and food on the table. And the government has not abandoned those who have been unemployed. That may have to continue for some time until we get as many Bermudians working again as possible. The hope on the horizon is with the 2021 tourism picture hopefully looking a bit brighter than it is now, the opening of the St. Regis, and some of the construction jobs that are to come. But absolutely, it is challenging, and at a time of challenge, people look to the government for some support. The government has been giving that support, and individuals should also be doing what they can to retool and reskill and be prepared to do something different that maybe that they were not doing last week or last month.
Indeed. Jonathan Smith, former police commissioner and senator in Bermuda. I guess, folks, you won't get your wish if you were hoping he would be that senator to fill that position. Thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Obviously, a lot of politics to go before the end of 2020 when you look at the U.S. at least. So we'll definitely hold the door open to bring you back for some more political commentary. Thanks again.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks.
All righty.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Very informative. I love people who have the, I remember seeing when he spoke of the FDM, for instance, as an additional party, and he broke down the 1989 situation, and it turned out, and he did that before the election, it turned out exactly how Mr. Smith kind of said it. Like it was interesting to read his commentary. So if you don't, he does share a lot of political opinions throughout Facebook. Check him out because it's very it's unbiased in my opinion. I know people may say, well, he's a former PLP center, but he really presents information in a way in layman terms. And so I'm thankful for him taking the time to come on and share his perspective on various political issues. Again, I know I mentioned Talent Clark earlier, but a friend, I'm going to say he's a friend of the show. Please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Wishing Talent full recovery. Very, very sad situation. When you read these things in the news, you obviously don't know because they don't give names. So when you find out, it's like, wow, so close. So we definitely want to remember his friends and family, as well as wishing him 100% health return. Now, I want to get back to the U.S. election real quickly. Did anyone see the meme about Florida? So you've heard of the Green Book. Everyone's heard of the Green Book in the U.S. So the Green Book, I actually don't hate on me because I learned more at the African American Museum in D.C. than I did about Black American history in my life, right? So the Green Book, you get in the car there. It's basically a book Black people had to have when they were traveling through the U.S., particularly the South, so that they can know where to stop for gas, where not to stop, like the safe areas. So someone made a meme about Florida, and it's pretty much like a Green Book guide to Florida. And so where to avoid going and spending your money and where to go. So if you haven't seen it, it's quite funny. But I think some people actually forget that Florida, certain areas are the South. Like you can go through certain areas of Florida and see pure Confederate flags, and it's really the South. And that's more north you go. But here's something I learned about Florida, and I'm not ashamed to say this. Florida is a big state. I don't think people understand how large a state it is. But I did not know until election night that there were 2 time zones in the state of Florida. I did not know that. Yeah, I didn't know that until election night. Because keep in mind, what's it called? Pensacola, I think, up there. Is it Pensacola? Yeah, on the Panhandle.
Panhandle.
Yeah, which is right beneath Alabama. Now, I lived in Alabama when I first came to the U.S., so I know the time. They were on Central Time, but I had no idea that below there in Florida, I did not know that was Central Time. But again, that just goes to show you how large the state is. And Miami is very different from Gainesville and Pensacola. Like it's very different. So I think it puts in perspective. I remember hearing, people saying they're driving through certain areas of Florida. Well, you're going to see things that don't look like Disney World when you do. But if you haven't seen that Green Book, well, it's not a Green Book.
Because isn't the movie based on that as such?
Yes, I heard that the movie did it a disservice. Yes, the movie is based on that.
The one movie I watched, he disses it.
Oh, you saw it? No, it was. There were bad reviews about it, saying it doesn't really tell the story, and they watered it down. That's all I read about it. But because I wanted to see it after I experienced sitting in the car and going through the Green Book on at the African American Museum in DC. I wanted to actually do it. Charles says there's also one going around what states are safe for Black people, Green Book. That's interesting because I don't know if you guys are on travel sites and so on, but earlier this year, it was saying like how black people actually have to check the safety for black people before they travel to certain countries. So I guess this is something that's going to happen with states in the US as well. No,
Sad.
it is sad, but I think the voting patterns tell you a lot. The voting patterns from this election tell you a lot. But I guess, I said yesterday that, and I read, and I don't know if I shared the thread with you guys, but it was a Cuban American woman. She's a first generation American. Her parents, and she was explaining why Cubans have traditionally voted Republican and why they would vote Trump. And we discussed it, how, they're scared by the term socialism, and how, Donald Trump in his ads down here, he compared a Biden presidency to socialism. So those words scare them and so on. And when they think socialism, they think Cuba and Venezuela. And there are a lot of socialist economists that are doing very well, but they don't speak about this. So socialism, as one of my friends said last night, is looked at as a bad word. It's like profanity to these people. And this woman, I believe she has a blue tick, so I don't know what she's famous for, but she said, it's a lot of brainwashing. It's a lot of brainwashing that takes place.
And the Democrats didn't push back on that socialism. They didn't push back hard enough, because one of the greatest opportunities they had was to prove how socialism works. Donald Trump, when he went to that hospital, that's socialism. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have to pay a thing. He didn't have to do a thing. It's there for an entire community of people. And but they didn't push back on it.
Well, Uncle Bernard's always saying that America does have socialism. It's just for the rich.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's said all the time. This country, the United States of America, does have socialism for the rich. But I don't think it's so, and this is why I came down on the Democrats, because about fighting fire with fire, you cannot take the high road all the time. I know everyone's beloved Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. I disagree. Surprise, surprise.
I hate the high road. It sucks.
I don't believe in taking the high road all the time, because at the end of the day, if you're not communicating effectively with the people you need to, then did the high road serve any purpose for you? I get her point, but it didn't work in 2016, and it didn't work in a lot of places it should have in 2020. But the point this lady was making, you guys, is that she was saying that Cubans who vote for Trump aren't racist. They were scared. That they were scared about voting for what they were made to believe was socialism of what they came from. It's interesting, because again, we discuss whether people who vote for Trump are racist, and you see his numbers have risen, but there's so many different reasons. Like, you have people, not me by the way, that may have received checks and feel like, look, that $1,200 went a long way. I wouldn't have got this from Joe Biden. They think that. So we don't know why these. I would love to know why people did it, but it would do me no justice to go outside of where I live in Florida and just think that these people are racist and don't like me. We don't know their reasoning, but I do find it hard to believe, I will say this, that you can overlook so many things and still vote for that. But then there's conscription in me. I've done it. That's just me being honest. Some issues are worth a lot. Like I said, conscription was worth 90% to me. Mm-hmm. So again, we don't know. We honestly don't know why people vote the way they do. But the voting patterns have surprised a lot of people. The increase in support for Donald Trump. But by the way, I learned on Facebook yesterday, you guys, do not say you have friends that voted for Trump. Don't say that.
Oh, I have to tell you something. So my eldest son, I'm like, who would you vote for? He was like, Trump. I was like, get out. Bye.
Kick them out.
Why don't you say that you have friends who voted for Trump?
Well, I'm just seeing some people take heat for that on social media. You know what I'm saying? You might want to keep some things on the wraps.
Look, not everything needs to be shared.
Yeah. And I think the people around me who may vote for Trump, I don't think they'll tell me.
It's funny you say that because in my family chat with Duval, who you guys were debating yesterday,
Mhm.
I look at the pressure sometimes. Like someone said, "Did you guys go out and vote?" And someone said, "I hope you didn't vote for Trump." And just thinking about that pressure, what if someone wanted to vote for him? You're almost ridiculed, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot can be forgiven though. A lot can be forgiven because you do have people that just don't trust Joe Biden and the Democrats. And this is why I said, earlier in this show, and I said it yesterday on Facebook or whatever, wherever I put it, but it's the black voters that seem to be, getting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris over the hill. If that's the case, that these inner cities and urban voters are getting them over the hill, they now need to do what they need to do for those voters.
Mhm.
Bottom line. And the voters have to hold them accountable. Like, I want to see that energy, folks. I want to see that energy.
I think you're gonna see it.
I,
I
oh,
I think you're gonna
I
see
don't
it.
think they can ignore it. I don't think they
The
would. I
move,
think it would be hell to pay if they did.
yeah. The movements are just they're so far along, and yeah, they're gonna be going back and saying, okay, now I did this for you.
mhm,
What's in it for, not what's in it for me, but
Right.
let's continue going forward, and let's get these things done.
mhm.
The voter suppression stuff has to be actually handled really, quickly too, because that was really, when you consider all the voter suppression that went on, and we're where we are, it's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, voter suppression has to be a topic of conversation. I mean, I'm thankful. We always say call out celebrities when we they do stuff we don't agree with, but I actually am thankful for the amount of celebrities that played a role in helping to fight voter suppression. And you know how I feel about voting, but if people want to vote, you do not do
Stop
everything
'em.
in your power to take that right away from them. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. What we got?
Yeah. Where are we going? Oh,
You tell us.
you ready?
Oh,
Okay, stretch. We are going to get some drink in Europe. This place has 3.78 million people,
Germany.
9,000 square miles.
Oh.
It's a very popular tourist destination, and it's the birthplace of the Italian Renaissance. Pinocchio originated here. The book was actually written there first before the movie was done and all that.
Sicily,
Sicily.
Inspiration for many Renaissance painters,
Milan. No, that's
well
in Paris,
known
right?
for fine wines. The Chianti region is very popular with British tourists.
It's in
Turin.
Italy.
Turin.
Was that good, Jamal?
Turin.
No.
It's in Italy.
Florence.
That
Florence.
No.
It's not Rome. Capri.
Capri.
No, close. It was like the first ladder.
We tried to cheat.
Yeah.
This guy says Genoa, Italy.
No,
Genoa.
not yet.
Hold on. I know what
Not
it is.
Sicily.
Parma.
Then
Tuscany.
Tuscany.
You said that?
I said, how did I not get that?
I know.
I said it, but Jamal said it over me. I
It's
said it
actually
like
the most
ages ago.
popular. I want to go there and just do wine tours. I've drank so much wine these last couple of
You
days.
call her fibbing though?
Huh?
You call her fibbing?
What'd she say? She got it?
She said it, but I talked over her. Anyway,
I'm not even gonna worry about
VAR.
I'm not even gonna worry about going back over the tape because I know she didn't say it. But you threw out a lot of
VAR.
stuff today. You guys know a lot about Italy.
oh,
No, we just guessed.
It's football for me. All the cities where teams play. Let us know where you. Give us a little roll call where you are tuned in from. Let us know real quickly as we got our final word. Shari, what you got for us?
You mean Carla? Oh, inspiration. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than the things you did. Mark Twain.
Oh, like forgetting about the inspirational thought. Yes. Thank you for
Sorry,
that.
Sherry.
No, that's okay.
We how can we forget to leave the show with a bit of inspiration? Thanks for that. Mark Twain, always someone who can make you have a good day if you're having a bad one. What you got for us, Sherry?
Just have a great day, everybody, and be kind.
All right, Carla, what you got for us?
Live your best life.
Oh my goodness, my that glass that just broke in the gee. Yeah, don't. Ooh, ouch. So look, check it out. We have Dr. Maria Seaman coming on tomorrow. So we're gonna have a good old-fashioned conversation with the Pastor Maria Seaman about a lot of things. It's a lot to talk about. Especially, you know what I want to talk to her about?
My party.
If Bermuda could move towards the places that the U.S. is moving towards. You have Oregon, New Jersey, Vegas. Like, what does Bermuda look like to bounce back from the pandemic? Because it's going to take people like her sacrificing their personal and religious beliefs for Bermuda to actually go places. So I cannot wait to have a conversation with Dr. Maria Seaman tomorrow. Trust me, you don't want to miss this, because her campaign manager, Carla Zul, well, she's on this show as well. Don't want to miss it. They might be planning for the next election. We appreciate you. We love you. We thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House. All recorded episodes and highlights can be found at thedailyhour.com. Stay connected with us by following us at The Daily Hour on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.